Hello and welcome back to the 6th episode of the Squishy. That's a lot of squishes, man. Squishee's Passions. Passionate Squish. The episode of the Passions. Squishy Passions. No. Of the Passions. Squishy Passions is what it's called. It used to be Passions of the Squish. I knew it at one point. And I will not be joining you guys because I don't know. I can't talk. I'm too drunk. It's a little bit too much for me. I can't even say squishy right. I don't even know the name of the episode. That's why they kicked me out today.
You really don't. Get out of here. Get off the mic, bitch.
You're done. Go home. I am home. We'll go to bed.
Some bitches do. This bitch won't. Get up in my squishy sandwich without a quote. Ain't no need to flex, you ain't even in my zone. You be trying to go, we already on the road. Don't kiss no toes, I be sitting on my throne. Don't multitask, you already on hold. Know when to fold, this here is gold. Scraping off the load.
Hi. Wait, we're literally starting?
Yeah, we just started.
Oh shit! I have the hookah in the background, the animals. Okay, all right, let's get this shit going.
Patty cakes, her husband, and all 5 children. How many pets do you have now?
Too many, way too many to name.
Ooh, y'all boot up
I have
like
Charlie. I have Charlie, Coco, Jordan, Subway, and Mitsubishi. Right? That's it.
Oh,
I had to like ask my husband to make sure that was everybody.
You sound like a Latino family from the Bronx.
Okay, because look, I'm the one that will like. I've definitely left my dog in the car on a 100-degree day and forgot the dog was in the car. So that's why I had to go through very slowly to make sure I had every animal accounted for.
Okay. Wow, Patrick, I'm judging you.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was like, where was I at? Oh, I was at Starbucks, and I was like, oh my god, shit, Coco's in the car, and I go out there, she's like,
Coco's a min pin, you asshole. Hot dog?
Like, I'm sorry, Mama. She was pissed. So how was your week been?
It's been good. I did my monthly duty at Arches Gallery. And so in order for us to hang as a co-op gallery, we submit artwork monthly and we pay $20 a month or $45 a month and $20 to the actual gallery space. And we do a once a month or twice a month desk duty, which means we host the gallery and we obviously do any transactions. We go through any transactions that we may have with any potential clients. And so I had a pretty interesting experience. I had one where I had a veteran come in and started inquiring about the artwork and looking around the gallery. And once we got to talking, I realized that he was a veteran and he realized that I was one. And, he asked me, why do you do it? And my response was, I do it because it's a form of healing for me and I want to help others heal as well. And as soon as I said that, he teared up and he started talking. I think he went into like a really bad place where he started crying and saying, I really appreciate what you're doing. There's so many demons that I see, so much dark stuff when I go to sleep. And then he just left, like just ran out of there. And wow. So it just made me think of like, this is why I'm doing it. This is why I'm pushing a podcast. This is why I'm pushing my artwork, because I need to have that effect. I need to help those that are in that space and don't know how to get out.
Right. It's kind of like an affirmation, right? So like it's just affirming that the work that you're doing is beneficial and it's actually touching lives. I mean, it's interesting because abstract work can be viewed as like in different ways because, it's how you interpret it. But a lot of your work, like for instance, you did something today, you kind of like worked on a canvas and then you sent it to me and I was like, oh, I feel like that this is kind of like a black stain on an otherwise normal life. You know what I mean? And like, right. You're like, yeah. And I'm like, I get it now. Like since you've started, your artwork, I've actually started the process of like learning more and actually taking time to like not overanalyze, but just take some time and take a deep breath and just like actually let the art speak to me.
Right. That's awesome that you did that. Yeah, no, it did come from kind of a dark place, and I'm happy that you understood it and you're kind of learning my art language. Because if you do see my work from beginning to where I'm at now, it's definitely evolution.
So when did you start like artwork? Like how did that kind of like start?
Oh my goodness, 2015. I was considering killing myself, and something willed me to go to Michael's. Literally rushed in there, bought a easel, some canvases, and some paint and paintbrushes. So for almost 3 days straight, I painted, and I was in such, I could call it a mental breakdown. Broke bottles of glass jars, painted with broken glass. I was using sponges. I was using random shit that I was ripping apart and just going at the canvas. And I literally just had a mental breakdown. And within that same week, I bought a camera, like $1,000 camera, and I started taking pictures. I actually have pictures on my computer of those couple of days. They're pretty dark, but yeah. So ever since then, I kind of never looked back and kind of just picked up from where I left off there. Once I moved back here to DC and continued painting and pursuing photography, and it's kind of turned out pretty well for me.
I mean, yeah, because like up until that point, you never really had tremendous experience with like the art side, did you?
Well, I've always been an artist. I've always been an artist since I was a child, but I never pushed it after high school because there was no money in art. You know how Hispanic parents are, or people of color, and so I never pursued it, and I kind of just dropped it after I joined the military, because I did attempt to be a mass communications major, which is like graphic design, but they didn't have the spot available, so I took corpsman. So that's what I did for 10 years, and now I'm going back to art and into graphic design.
Wow, so it's kind of like from a dark moment, you were able to come out of it with like, you know, like a new appreciation and like, I guess you can't really master artwork, but you kind of like have been improving upon it day after day, especially after that dark moment in time.
I think I needed those 10 years in the military and the 20 years behind all of that of really dark places to be the artist that I'm becoming today.
So I guess you can say like art is like a passion of yours, yeah?
Yes. Yeah, it definitely is.
Okay. That's dope. Like, thanks for sharing that. I mean, I think one of the things about this podcast that we kind of talked about was really sitting down and having conversations about like community, because definitely we don't talk about mental health as much as we should. So I really appreciate you that's just like feeling comfortable enough to like talk about that.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, I guess for me, like I've had the same thing. I've been dealing with a lot of mental health issues for a very long time. And I just really started getting into advocacy. I started getting into a lot of work in that capacity. I used to work in like for-profit sector, and then I started to get really engaged in nonprofit, more specifically around like gay men and the intersectionality of HIV. And so I started working as like a HIV tester. And then that kind of progressed for me actually running a testing program down in Fredericksburg, Virginia, which then progressed for me actually being on, I guess you could say, a national level, going to national conferences, being a part of national campaigns, addressing stigma, HIV, and other health disparities that gay men in the LGBT community face. So I had a moment where I kind of had a mental breakdown. I got burnout, and burnout is real, first of all, and like that shit actually happens. And so I burnt out. I made the decision to go back to being a flight attendant. And now, like, I think this podcast is one of those baby steps that I'm taking to get back into the game. And I've done another project. I did something with a pharmaceutical company for a project. But outside of that, I haven't really been like overly engaged in like gay men's health, but I'm really ready to get back into that.
Yeah. So is that why you became a flight attendant? So you could get out to all these events for free?
No, girl, I wish. Like sometimes, sometimes in my job, like for instance, like I was working a flight from San Diego back to New York, and I met this guy, and he was actually like they're going on a honeymoon, him and his wife, and we actually kicked it off really well. And he was like, "Hey, here's my card. Like, there's this like bougie I took it away as like my country ass, this bougie ass club in San Diego," and he was like, "Hey, here's my card. Whenever you come, let me know. And I will definitely let you in. Like, you don't have to pay a cover. Like, you're in, and like the drinks are in the house."
Wow.
Shit like that does happen.
Well, last time I took a car from a straight couple was in Toronto. I ended up in a basement party for an after hours that involved a lot of naked bodies.
Oh, girl.
I came out. It was 8 a.m. I was like, the sun is burning. So is my skin.
Oh my God. That was a straight couple?
Yeah, a straight couple. We met at a gay bar at a drag show, and then they kind of just like, "Hey, come join us." I'm like, all right. And I mean, we exchanged cards and everything, but I ended up in some crazy, like, the guy was Russian, the guy at the door. It was kind of weird. And so he knew him, handed him some money. Next thing you know, I'm like in this super exclusive party in a basement in some random building in Toronto.
Like a sex dungeon.
It wasn't sex. Oh no. So it wasn't like sex. I just mean people were just like half naked everywhere and kind of like enjoying themselves.
Like explain. Like what do you mean enjoying themselves?
Kind of like a very sexually charged rave.
Okay. Yeah. You have the most interesting stories. I just want you to know that.
I'd love to walk around and wander when I'm visiting in the city.
Bitch, please.
I don't care where I end up.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, so I mean I guess this episode, like we kind of got into it, is about like our squishy passions. And I guess we've already kind of started the segment off, but I mean what's it like? I guess your artwork is a major passion for you.
Yes, and I kind of want to push it even further into advocacy. You know, as you know, like I've suffered a lot with addiction, and the root of that has been my PTSD from childhood sexual trauma, military sexual trauma, and war trauma. And after the years of therapy that I have been through, I finally am in a place where I can actually appreciate all those things that happened to me. And I'm ready to integrate that into a future where I can help others that have been through that. Because I sure as hell remember walking through Walter Reed almost 2 years ago and just wanting to crumple over and just die, like just fade away as part of the building, non-existent, because that's the way I was made to feel when I had reached out for help. And so we're on the same boat, you know, like we were definitely very passionate about like helping others.
So for me, yeah. So in 2011, World AIDS Day, I was actually diagnosed with HIV. And so like you, I was also in a position where like I was very suicidal. I was very negative. And basically I was so frustrated and I was just very over life. And on the outside, what I was projecting to people was, oh, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to be fine. But when I got home and I was by myself in my 1-bedroom apartment, and I had a relationship with somebody who I thought was going to be forever thing, and that person kind of started to shame me for essentially exposing them to HIV, I felt very alone. And so basically I brought a new MacBook and I sat in front of that fucking camera and I just told my story and I posted it on YouTube. And from there, like storytelling became a form of therapy for me, and it became something that also helped to give back. And that led for me, you know, again, like I said earlier, to get to a global stage, to the point where like I think I was living in DC and I actually had like film crew came to my apartment and they actually filmed a segment on World AIDS Day, and I think one was from the UK and I think one was from, I want to say, like Australia. I'll find the video for like
please put on the
for the post notes. But yeah, so like it got to that point. But again, burnout is real. Life is fucking real. Things happen, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And again, that's why I'm here, and I really want to continue the passion and the pursuit of it. But I think also being in school full time, now being married, and dealing with the complexities of like, how do you tell like another family that you're dealing with this when it's, you know, a very stigmatized thing in that particular community. So I actually have been like back in the closet, not really discussing it, you know, hiding my meds. And again, it's a process, but it's like, it's hard for me to be very active and be back on a national level when I have my husband's family to keep away from that. Because then they start thinking, oh, is your husband, is my son, is my brother
so they're not
positive?
Aware.
They don't know. No, I have not been like, yes, I have HIV.
So,
I mean, I think with his brother, we had an argument or something, and he started like, he said something and I was like, that's offensive because I'm positive. Or he said something and I was just like, no, I'm positive. And I think I sent a text and his best friend was reading it, and that's how he found out. And my husband supports me. He's like, if they find out, fuck it. Like, they don't have to live our lives. Like, I'm on PrEP. I go to my doctor all the time, like to the point where like he can call his doctor and his doctor will be like, girl, take these meds, like whatever the situation is. But like, you know, we've developed such a great relationship with our providers, and also he's been very responsible. I could say one thing he's been doing, it's been being on top of his health, especially his health when it comes to like STIs and like, you know, HIV. So like, I think he's in the space of being educated, and that took that was a long journey within itself.
Right. And that says a lot about him, considering his age. I mean, he's a little bit younger than you, but shows.
Girl, he's way younger than me.
Okay.
Well, and I know last episode we talked about cougars. Bitch, I'm a cougar. Like, even though I'm 30,
shit.
like, bitch, I'm a cougar.
You dug your hind nails into, what is it? You dug your hind Never mind. Fuck that.
Girl, my hangnails. You're right. I dug my hangnails and my fucking like. No, I mean, but the thing is like this with love, and I think it has a lot to do with like my passions and my dreams, like with love and like finding the right partner in life. And it's okay if you're single. Like, girl, René, no shade. Like, you're single. That's your life. You know, you've had your type of relationships, but you know, for me, it's like having somebody in my life that can help me like continue to pursue my passions and dreams is important, because there's been relationships that I've been in where like you're competing. Like, it's like they want to be just as good as you are, and it's not a healthy relationship. Like, I found somebody who's okay with where they're at, and they want to push me and be my biggest cheerleader, and that's important. Like, he's helped me continue to be involved with with this podcast, this project, and other ones. So, you know, like, he's been a great support structure in my life. Like, he's like a root to my tree. Without him, like, my ass would be just blowing in the fucking wind back and forth, up and down, like all that craziness.
Yeah, I get that. I think, but for me, I am a little bit more independent. I just can't. I guess as an artist, I've sometimes become too. I allow the process to basically swallow me whole. And,
girl, that's okay.
And I don't come up for air or anybody for like a month sometimes. And I think that was
that's okay. Like just for some dick.
No. Even in my last relationship, I think that was kind of like the demise, where I realized like I need somebody who can be okay with me disappearing for a month into my garage, sleeping near my art, because that's how weird I am, without needing extra attention or needing me to coddle them or, you know, be super attentive to their needs every 5 seconds, you know, or getting mad that I'm not doing that. And, you know, like, it's a level of respect for the artistry and also like the relationship you knew you were walking into, and I didn't get that.
But it's the same if like you're a musical artist. Like, you go into the studio late at night until early hours of the morning. Like, you're never emotionally available because you're working on your project. And that, like, whenever the album or that soundtrack comes out, it's like, that's your baby. Like, you invested your heart into it. And I guess it's the same with like putting images on a screen, on a canvas. Like, it's very much the same thing. It's just a different avenue in which that work is speaking to a person. But I guess with that being said, like, I guess the question is, how has our past shaped our future selves? And it's really time to be open and discuss why it is important to pursue our dreams. I mean, again, I can talk about my past and where I've been at, but like, how about you chime in and tell me, like, if your 30-year-old self can go back to your younger self, how old would you be at that time? And then what would you tell yourself?
So if your 30-year-old self could go back in the past to tell your childhood self something, what year would you be? And what would you say?
Girl, I'm asking you. Don't ask me.
Oh.
I love how you repeated that. I was like, okay, he's repeating the question. This is a really good interview. He's like grasping the question. He's doing active listening. No, bitch, that was a question for you.
It's so hard because honestly, like, my whole entire adulthood has been filled with so much dark and so many bad decisions. A lot of good moments, a lot of happiness, but it took me wading through some very muddy, damp places to get to even a little bit of semblance of happiness. But it was all those little moments of happiness that got me to where I am today, where I can truly see the happiness that I was building up for. And so what I would tell him, be like, bitch, don't grow up, stay at home, don't be jumping out your parents' window. Like, I am serious. Like, I would be so scared to, like, if I were able to go back in time and tell them this is what's going to happen to you, I would be scared for him.
But don't you think, like, with all those negatives that have happened in your life, like, there's been like a positive that just outweighs all of that?
Yeah. Okay. So I would go back and be, hey, look, little dude, you may die about 100 times. Shit, you not. I've almost OD'd, hit a car, hit a semi at 100 miles per hour, been to war, been in some really weird situations where I was almost dead. And so I'd be like, look, you're going to go through some shitty ass moments, but wait till you hit a little over 30 and things are going to start to look up. But if you lose faith in the universe, you're not going to make it out alive.
That's strong. I like that.
Yeah. And what about you?
Girl, I don't even know who I'd go back with, because I have a very complex past, like from knowing at a very young age, I'm talking about preschool, that I was gay, like, or I was different, let's say that, all the way to the point where like I was too white sounding. I wasn't urban enough to fit in. Even when I lived in Japan as a young kid, I was too dark skinned. My hair was red. So, I mean, I've always been the all ball. When I lived in Japan, I had like if you see my beard,
Oh, that's right.
actually it gives away I am a redhead. When I lived in Japan, I was a again like a light skinned kid with like red hair, and I just really didn't match what everybody else looked like. And I mean, yeah, I lived on a military installation with other kids, but like we interacted with a lot of Japanese kids all the time, and I just looked weird. I acted weird. I was kind of like a femme. So like I used to always get teased, and even in high school, like I obviously what frustrated me the most, I guess, about high school is the fact that like a lot of I was like not necessarily straight acting, because I hate to say that, but I was a little bit more like mask compared to my other like friends who were like gay. But all the people in school would be like, oh, like he likes Jesus, so he's not gay, or like he's in the band, he's not gay, but you're gay because like you always hang out with girls and whatever, whatever, whatever. So like I came out early in high school. I think my freshman year of high school, I came out. And so compared to my other colleagues who were in the closet, obviously for no reason, because girl, we all knew,
Right.
I got teased a lot because I was very open about who I was, and I was proud about who I was, even though I got slammed at the lockers and things of that sort. But it's interesting because now at 30, my high school friends and colleagues, like 2 of them are trans, and like a lot of them are gay. But like during high school, they never got teased as much as I did, because I was the one who was like completely open and comfortable with who I was. So I guess if 30-year-old me went back, I'd go back to myself maybe like I would say like girl, like I don't even know, like I would say maybe like middle school, like like 19, 11, 12. So maybe like 7th, 8th grade, because that's when I really had a hard time. And I'll just tell myself, like just, girl, don't be fighting bitches because they got shit to say to you. Don't be getting suspended. Focus on really sitting back and like learning to love yourself, and learning that like in life people are going to just throw shit at you and you're going to get through it in the end. And I think one of the most important things I would have told myself was definitely be in a position to like actually focus in school and try to learn as much as you could. Because girl, at this point, if I would have like learned as much as I did in high school and really tried to not necessarily apply myself, because in Virginia, like girl, we got these things called standards of learning, SOLs, and like literally all the teachers do is try to just teach you to pass your SOLs. So you don't really retain shit. But I would have like really actually tell myself to like actually apply myself, get tutoring, really study hard, because girl, like I was at the Coast Guard Academy and I flunked out because like I wasn't necessarily academically prepared. And if I was prepared, girl, I would be an officer right now in the Coast Guard, just sitting on my own little cutter in command, just chilling.
Yeah, with the government shutout. Yeah, good luck.
Girl, I won't be making no coin at this point, but girl, I'll be chilling when my retro pay got active, like.
I just
but
found
I mean,
out.
what's up?
I was gonna say I found out that the Coast Guard was part of the government shutdown. Like they're not considered active duty.
Well, they're not in they're not in the DOD budget. They're in the actual DHS budget.
Yeah.
So, girl, like that's a Homeland Security. That's a whole bunch of tea, because you have Coast Guard members serving abroad, like all around the world.
Right.
Like you even have like port security officers like on the ports in certain international waters. And like, guess what? Your ass is not getting paid. Like even if you're in a war zone, you have like teams deployed in embassies and everything, and they weren't even getting paid. So like, girl, I'm blessed at that. But I mean, like, I wouldn't really change anything, because like if I look back today, I'm actually growing as a person. I'm actually making decent money. I actually am working on my master's. Granted, like I haven't been able to do it at a pace that other people are doing it, because a girl in my class like already has her doctorate. That's not who I am. That's not my speed. And I've learned, and I guess what I would tell myself is in the past, that everything happens in time. Right. It doesn't necessarily have to happen fast, but just be patient and it will.
So what would you have to say to people who aren't currently pursuing their passions, or are thinking about it, or are just unhappy in where they're at, and the importance of pursuing something you love to do, or at least finding it?
Girl, I'm like not necessarily like scared, but I'm very conservative in terms of my actions. But I would say like, as long as you have a backup, do it. Like, girl, like once I get this master's, girl, I think I'm gonna try to start like expanding and maybe getting into acting and doing other things, because I have that security net. So if I have to, girl, work at like for the government or something, I know I can get a job based off of my academia and my experience. But the thing is, like, for instance, as a kid, I've always wanted to be like a professional tennis player or a professional swimmer. And I used to do both very, very like amateur like I actually was very good at tennis. I was playing in tournaments week in and week out, and then also I was swimming. Girl, I went to Australia and New Zealand and actually swim in international competitions. But I guess over time as a kid you stop the belief in yourself, and I guess that's like as a kid you always have these dreams that I'm going to be an astronaut or I'm going to be like a fighter jet pilot, and then as you start to get older you realize that like those things aren't necessarily reality, and that's where I'm at right now. So I guess if I could say something, it would be like, girl, just go out there and pursue your dream. If you fail, like if you shoot for the moon, at least you land amongst the stars. Like you definitely have to get out there and you have to try to pursue your dreams, and I think you're like a testament to that. Like you were in a dark place and you said, bitch, I'm going to do this artwork and I'm going to be the best at it, and here you are like showing your work at the Howard Theater. You're like online, like with people looking at your work. I have my own friends that see your work and they're like, "Oh my God, can you paint a nude portrait of me?"
Oh yeah, remember you said that.
Girl, no, like so. I had a friend and she was like, "Oh, I really want like someone to paint like a nude portrait of me, like because I'm a plus size girl. I'm proud of myself." I was like, "Look at my friend's work," and she's like, "Oh my God, like can we get in touch? Like can we hook something up?" And I mean like.
That's crazy.
Girl, if you were drawing stick figures, nobody would want your work.
No, I've actually been considering doing nude abstract painting. So when you said that, I was like, it's been on the top of my head actually for a while. So I thought it was an interesting, intriguing to say the least. If I were to look back at, if I were to send a message to others who are in this weird gray zone or or contemplative mode of like what they want to do with their life, I would have to say that, if you don't know what your passion is, try something new once a week, once a month, whatever your budget fits. And best believe that the universe will bless you with something that you love to do. And it's going to happen by chance. And it could be basket weaving underwater is like the common saying. You never know, but you'll know because it'll be that experience that fuels you and motivates you to push it to the best possible version of it within your realm that it can possibly become. And that's how I feel about this podcast. That's how I feel about my artwork and photography, that it needs to grow because I can see my potential and feel it like teeming at my fingers when I think about it while I'm doing it. And so, yeah.
That's very true. So do you have like a secret talent or anything like that no one would ever know about you? Nothing sexual, bitch. Just actual, like just your actual talent that you have that like, cause you said like practice things, like get to a point where like you find something that like, I don't know, can you basket weave underwater? Like what's a secret talent that you've discovered through that process that you can do that you never knew you could?
You know what? I don't, I mean, other than my artwork, I think my artwork has brought me to a level of understanding my own internal emotions that I'm able to just look at the way someone writes their name or scribbles something on a paper or the way someone paints or does their art. I can really tell the emotion that's coming out and through them. And I'm able to do that through conversation as well. So it's allowed me to really become like an empath. So yeah, it's not something like crazy or like, I mean, you said keep it PG, so.
Yeah, my PG thing, yeah. I've always been an empath, but for me, calligraphy, like I didn't know I had that skill until like later on in life when I was just sitting down and I was just like writing in hiragana and katakana, which are kind of like Japanese letters, and then I've kind of transitioned to like actual English, like just writing letters out and stuff. So like calligraphy is something that I've discovered that I'm actually really good at. So usually when I'm bored or like I'm really needing to like decompress or I just got in a fight or something, I just kind of scribble and I write things out. And yeah,
poetry.
That's your thing, poetry?
Yes. Like, how could I forget?
You've done some haiku before and sent it to me, right?
In my Instagram, there's I think about 40. I dubbed it my dark box of chocolates because it came from dark places, or black box of chocolates. And I actually I had a blog post called "The Cock and Carrot" during my vegetarian years, where it included a lot of poetry and a lot of like weird vegetarianism crap that always happens. Like, where's your protein from? All that bullshit. But yeah, poetry is something I still do, and I look back at some of the stuff that I've written, and I'm just like, wow, like that's some deep shit. And once at Busboys and Poets, I actually read one of my darkest poems in front of an audience, and shit you not, like I was shaking, but man, I made it through that poem, and it felt so good because I could tell that people resonated, received it, interpreted it, and appreciated what I had read. So.
Look at you performing. Are you already performing?
Yes, bitch.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like we gotta pursue our passions and our dreams because as you start to get older, train. This episode is brought to you by MTA. Always late, never on time. MTA.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a little segment out of that.
So yeah, like by the way, I live like right on the train tracks, like so you may hear the train kind of coming and going, but like I was saying, man, you gotta like pursue your passions and dreams because like the thing is, like for instance, like my mom, like as she's gotten older, like she still has all these dreams. It's like, mom, like when you retire, get out there and like do your nonprofit, do your thing, like like you can never die wondering like what if. Like that's why like when I get to a point like I can retire early. Bitch, it's a wrap. Like I'm gonna be retired early. I'm gonna be traveling the world.
Yeah.
Playing tennis on different kind of courts, like meeting different cultures, seeing other people. Like one of my biggest dreams that I hope René to be able to do with you is definitely like travel the country and then travel the world to like.
Oh my God, we can rent an RV and podcast like in every state. I would love that. It would be
podcast kind of documentary thing where like we just like document the lives of people who are queer, who are like, living intricate lives, like different like underground cultures. Like I would love to like just experience that. That would be so cool.
Totally love to do that and add like veterans who are suffering with addiction because it is so swept under the rug that it's embarrassing what the military is doing to these service members. And what they're becoming and how they're basically disappearing like off the planet, and it needs to be talked about.
Yeah, and I can't wait to discuss that in a later episode because that's something that's just something that's going on and our country is not really being accountable for. Girl, just like the Indian Health Service, that's just another situation where like other people are just been like thrown like under the bus and like are like marginalized and not taken care of like they should be.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess this concludes this episode, and please share our content. Follow us on all social media at The Squishy Sandwich. Help our dreams come true by subscribing and sharing our content. We're both artists in our own way, and we totally want to bring more dynamic content and really be advocates and a voice for others. So
yeah, take a look at our show notes too, because I'm gonna try to grab some of that content in which I've done before. I'll try to like find a piece that I wrote before or something, and we'll share our work so you can kind of see what we've done and what we've been doing. And I still am doing work on that side, just not as much. So yeah, just also follow the show notes and social media because we definitely put a lot of content up there for you all to kind of keep along with what we're doing in our everyday lives.
Yep, definitely. All right, we'll catch you next time.
Bye. See ya. Take care.